So I'd like to call this meeting to order, verify compliance with open meetings law, and then adopt the agenda. Please stand with me to pledge. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We don't have any audience members, so we'll skip number 3. Number 4 is gifts and donations, and that's school board recognition.
I get to do this.
What are we doing?
So, this is for Quinn and Luann. You guys have to come up here. Yeah.
Oh.
So this is from WASD.
Oh, I
Oh.
was thinking cash.
So, it is. So, we'll take a picture after. So this is for Quinn. I feel like there is no audience. I feel like I'm really speaking to the people who are here. So, last Tuesday, Luann and I both attended a regional meeting for the Wisconsin Association of School Boards in Pewaukee for our region. And at that time, they recognized board meeting members who have different levels of recognition. So you can be recognized as a level 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. And so at that time, Quinn was recognized as a level 2, with a little pin and a certificate, as a level 2 board member. Congratulations!
That means, yay!
And at that same time, Luann was recognized as a level 3 school board member. She also has a pin and a certificate that there is also. So
Rock on.
there. So picture worthy. Yeah. So.
I love the arm around action.
You're welcome.
Congratulations, Luann and Quinn.
Rock
Okay, on to 4, consent agenda. Number 5, consent agenda. 5A is approval of October vouchers. B is approval of September 25th and October 9, 2017 school board minutes. And C is approval of youth options requests. Would anyone like to remove an item?
C.
Okay, C. Anyone else? Okay, motion to approve items A and B.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. You need to abstain from C. Perfect. Okay, so a motion to approve item C.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Stephanie. So that's approved. Thank you. Action items 6. The first one is 2017-18 tax levy. And do I have a motion to approve? Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
Okay, now discussion.
Oh, boy. Are we fancy, huh?
Follow the rules. We're following those rules.
No!
Correct.
The look at
Too
your
many.
That's okay.
You're like, what are you doing?
I just saw Mike over.
And
I know,
Mike-
I settled out like a-
Hang on here.
Yes.
thought he was
Hold on.
Mike
Hold on.
like,
Cutting edge stuff
Good.
here.
I'm good.
All right, go for it, Mike.
you wanted to say something.
No,
It's discussion. Does anybody have any questions about it?
yep.
I did ask some questions, and they were responded to, and everybody got the answers. And thank you for getting them, and I think it clarifies what I needed.
Any other questions? Okay. Then all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. B is 2017-18 original budget. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Aye.
Any questions? All in favor?
I had
Oh,
one thing, if I can find it quickly. Um, Losing the table of stuff. No, I think I forgot to mark it. It did take too long. It was probably not gonna. It was not gonna make a difference in the.
okay.
Well, regardless, John, if you can still reach out.
Yeah, if you
I'll
think
do
of
that.
it, send it. Thank you.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And then C, resolution authorizing temporary borrowing an amount not to exceed $3,250,000 pursuant to section 67.128A1 Wisconsin statutes. Motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any questions?
So could you go over the question that was asked of you?
Yep, so, the question was asked that this appears to be a little more in-depth than what has been done in the last few years. And so, a couple things with that. Associated Bank has gone with a new legal counsel for financial purposes. They've gone with Quarles and Brady. And Quarles and Brady, this isn't new from anything that I've seen in the past with Quarles and Brady. They ask a lot of questions and they want to get a little more in-depth than maybe what Associated had been doing in the past. So we gave them everything from what we expect the yearly financials to be to a full 12-month cash flow. And with those comes much more legal documents that they put into place that Associated just hasn't done apparently in the past. So nothing new. I've done the same things with other districts. When we cash flow borrowed, it's the exact same thing. I wasn't surprised by it, but to know that it was different than previous years is okay. Yeah.
So in previous years, we didn't have to pay this fee? They kept it in-house or whatever?
I'd have to look and see if this fee has been paid before.
Either way, this is what it takes.
Either
This is
way,
what they're required
it
now.
is what it takes. The bank may have charged in the past for the actual creation of the documents. They're not doing that this year. Instead, they're putting half of the legal fee instead. So it might just be a flip of what they're charging versus what they've charged in the past. So nothing for the creation of the documents that they put forth, but something for the legal side of it.
Any other questions?
Yeah, it doesn't really get into, I guess it does get into depth in just the contract. And is this just a line of credit like it says? It's not getting into actual short-term bonds that we're sending out?
No, it is a line of
Okay,
credit.
that's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure.
And, yep.
Any other questions? Okay, then all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. On to 7, which is reports, and it'll be the superintendent report.
So, I'm going to go through our district goals and take a look at, just give you some updates from October on each of the goals that we have here. So the first one has to do with promoting a learning environment. And so today we had a professional development day with all of our staff. And on that, our focus today was data. That's part of my, Jack's just a little bit ahead. Next time. And so the day-to-day today, in terms of having our staff look at our district data, then they broke out and looked at their building data, and then they got into their classroom data. So when we talk about this RTI, if you remember the presentation with our gifted and talented, this diamond about kids who are on the extremes as we go into the middle. So our teachers today, for the very first time, believe it or not, actually looked at data. We had about 215 teachers in our cafeteria that started out the day, and we facilitated that. And the first question was, how many of our teachers were aware of what WISE Dash is, which is the public site on DPI that any person can go and look up achievement data. We had one person raise their hand. So one teacher was even aware that that even existed. So it let us know where our entry point is our teachers even knowing where data is publicly, because that's where our parents go to get the data. It's what gets reported in the newspaper. How do we compare against other districts? So we started there, just getting a composite look at who we are as a district, our makeup, our open enrollment, our demographics, our achievement scores, some really high-level stuff. Next, they broke into buildings, and they looked at their building student achievement data a little bit and started to look at those over some trend data, what that looks like. And then the last part of the day, they started to look at grade level or department data. What did that mean? And really started to get into it. But I would say it was probably the first time that the district has done a comprehensive look even at data teachers to be able to really dig down into that. And it was the starting point to determine where are some sense of urgency pieces right now in terms of, wow, I didn't know our data was like that. And there were many, many questions and ahas that our teachers had this morning, such as they were unaware of some of the trend data, whether it was up or down, or the demographic data, or how we compared to neighboring school districts, whether it was with the percentage of students with a disability or socioeconomic status or anything. It was new, and so it was exciting that teachers were getting immersed in that and really starting to look at that and what does that mean and what implications does that have for us. So that was today where we were looking at that. The next 2 days, we have our principals and some of our team going to an RTI conference, the statewide RTI conference. They're very excited, so they will be immersed in more data for the next 2 days and learning how to take a look at that and what that means. We also started holding, Lynn is working with our RTI coordinator, Jill. Every 2 weeks now there are data team meetings at all the buildings and looking at that and deciding. We have identified some students who maybe have not, whose data suggests that maybe they need to at least go through the process of looking at a gifted and talented evaluation. We also have some that are looking at for some other interventions. So our data teams are starting to meet regularly now that we have all of our math testing and STAR testing and PALS for our kindergarten, our reading and that. So we have our local data, and now our data team is meeting regularly to look at that data. And then they're going to see, after they start doing some interventions or working with them, what's happening with the data. So some structures are getting into place, some timely things are happening very consistently. So in terms of our student achievement data, we're starting to have the conversations so people can start to understand what our data is. Our second goal had to do with enhancing achievement at our higher levels. And so right now, our data team meetings that I talked about, we have not sent what's called benchmark data, what it means to get different levels of intervention, all the way what's called Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, or be labeled as a Title I student or a gifted student. It hasn't been quite clear enough on a lot of all of those types of things. And so they're setting what are called benchmark data to look at a student for recommendation for all of those. So in terms of high academic achievement, we have to set our benchmark data to even know where students fall in that spectrum, and we just haven't done that before in terms of what qualifies as student, and working on communicating with parents then as far as where they're, because if you look at the standardized test and you just get a test score back, parents don't know what that means. Where does that mean my child is? What does that mean for them? So we're trying to provide that in a lot more consistent basis and communicating that out. Our third goal has to do with students for the college, career, and life readiness. If you remember back on October 9th, the board took a look at the career readiness piece of it, so we did that. Today, for staff, we revisited the Redefining Ready and looked at those factors of what that report card would look like. So that's where the data premise started from, about who are we and what is our benchmark data this year. Also have attended a couple of things. We held our consortium meeting with the other 4 school districts in terms of what we offer for career readiness, and there was some exciting news from MATC, some programs that they're offering, and working with our other 4 school districts that were part of that consortium, what we can offer students, and also looking at, if you've watched the news lately, there's been a lot of news on MATC partnering with Cardinal Stritch, Mount Mary, and now UW-Milwaukee in creating some of the shortage career areas such as nursing. And so what they've done is it's a partner program of 2 and 2, and they're trying to get potentially 1 year even in the high school so students can graduate, because there will be such a shortage, they need to sort of get that pipeline fixed. So there's some exciting stuff that's happening between a lot of those partnerships, and so if we can be in on that in terms of articulating our students so they can leave here with a very specific, instead of random courses as they call that, either certificates or whatever that might be. I think they have in terms of their post-secondary education, it's a lot more direct, whether it's 9 credits and they start out with a certificate in something, or instead of just a random class here and there, it really doesn't count for anything. So I'm glad to see some of the conversations starting to happen with our counselors and with other school districts and some of our post-secondary institutions. This Thursday, counselors, Lynn, Charlie are attending an event at Greenfield High School that we mentioned last time, in which we have 12 admissions offices attending from universities to sort of talk about their missions and how that process has changed for them and what that looks like. So we're very excited about listening to what they had to share with us, and we'll be sure to report that back. Our 4th goal has to do with our communication plan, and ta-da, like about 3 hours ago, we went live with our new website. So it needs the night to clear out, so it might be a little slow right now. It actually is going through all of the technical stuff behind the scenes right now. So you can see that, take a look at that in terms of our menus. It should be a lot more easier to navigate. Jack, are you able to navigate it from back there? If you go to the can you just hover over the district drop-down menu? It should, yeah. So one of the goals we tried to do with this website is right off on the main page, because people were never sure what link they should click on or what they're doing. So right now on the main landing page, if you go to the district there, you can see all of the different options if you don't want to get to a specific building. And you're able to get to that stuff right there without having to go to a menu and drop down and another menu and seeing that. So tried to make it very navigation friendly for whoever is visiting our site. Up in the upper corner, the stuff that is most commonly referenced, staff directory, Infinite Campus, those types of things that are right there. So when you get an opportunity, take a look at it. There are still some things that are being built. They were stuff that our old site didn't have, but we're building it, and we're trying to add more things to it. So we'll be getting feedback, but give it a few more hours to sort of really populate over and make sure that everything is there. So there's that. So that was pretty exciting today in terms of our website. You should have all received also your fall issue of the Whitnall Window. From a newsletter standpoint, it was renamed. We talked about that previously. It was called The Viewpoint, which there's nothing wrong with that name, but the Whitnall Window is just in terms of having a glance in there, not necessarily having an opinion from the viewpoint. May sound like it has an opinion and is just reporting out good news. So any feedback on that is welcome to either me or to Logan. Next goal had to do with our communications, and right now we're related specifically to the referendum. So we've shared out, and we'll be sharing with our public, the referendum timeline that takes us to resolution, and then there's a communication plan that starts from January all the way through April. So that's where we are in terms of timeline. As we continue to move into this process, obviously some of the other goals that we have under the referendum planning will come to fruition. Our survey is still open, and we're still finishing that up. So obviously it's a little bit too early to get into some of who are our groups and where we're going to meet and go out in the community and but that will be our next step. So having a timeline that takes us through April 3rd right now is where we're at for that goal. And the last goal to report on tonight has to do with our financial plan and our model beyond budgeting. Right now Mike is working through, as he's owning the budget this time because it's a budget that he's creating and understanding, it is really going through and figuring out what some of these line items are, because some of them weren't quite clear. And so there's a lot of questions going on and trying to understand some of the items that are there. We do have a personnel committee related to some of the things as he started to look at them, whether it's through insurance, whether it's through a lot of different factors that are related to budget and personnel. So those will be addressed there, but we're starting to look at all of those. I think at one time the district had more of a centralized process with a lot of things in terms of budgeting that came out of the district, and it became decentralized over the years, and that's a lot harder to figure out where all of the costs are. And so we're trying to figure that out, whether it's supplies, because that's very decentralized right now, and we don't think that's a very efficient way, both from understanding where our costs are going or even bulk purchasing. So we're trying to get a handle on some of those things, bringing it back and centralizing those processes. Even so, for whatever reason, over time, they just became very decentralized, and so it's hard to look at controls of costs when they're at the building or classroom level in some case. Mike and I also, he was at a conference, looked at some available tools that look at the data analysis of comparable districts, what they're spending on some of that, and as compared to what we're spending on it, very similar sized districts, demographics, where their student achievement is, and so you can see, are we under or over on some of those categories? So very intriguing and interesting. So we are continuing to start to look at some of that. Do we overspend in one area, underspend? And is there, explainable reasons? If there's not a reason to explain it, then we probably need to dig a little bit deeper to figure why is that. So you'll get more on that as we continue to dig into it, but those are all that I have in terms of the district goals tonight. Facility planning, today is the official last day for the survey. They say they typically keep it open for a day or two after just to get any stragglers to in there. As of this morning, when I asked for there, we had 1,321 surveys in, 221 staff members, 604 parents, and the rest were community, non-staff, non-parent members. So I did one more email out to parents, a specific direct email out this afternoon just to let them know we'll keep it open if they haven't done it. And so hopefully can pick up some more there. And they may have some more paper surveys that are getting mailed in that School Perceptions then enters in. They said they've gotten a few hundred actually paper copies, and so it takes them a while to translate it versus those who take it online. So that's the update on the facilities. Our next meeting, which is a special meeting on November 6th, we'll review that. We'll be meeting with school perceptions in Bray before that to just quickly to sort of look at what that is and then get that out to us before that night so you can start to look at it. But really that night is the discussion, no decisions or anything. It will be to have school perceptions will be here to really go through the data and say, what does the survey say? What does that mean? So that's a special meeting that will focus just on survey results. That's the whole purpose of that.
That 1,300, that was the total, and those other numbers were made up the part of?
Correct, correct. Yep.
How many surveys were sent out?
Surveys, like 1,000, like probably. I think it's got to be more than that. Yeah. So when the surveys were sent out, they were sent out one per household, and then if you had multiple, you could request a different code. So some households decided to do their or not.
People in the house that want to take
Adults
the
who
survey.
wanted to take the survey, you could request another code, or online when it went to parents. So you could request more than that, and some people did. I mean, because of that, people had different opinions, or they each wanted their voice to be heard. So that you could have done that however you wanted. I think for our parents, some of them took the hard copy, and then some of them took the electronic.
Do those have different codes?
Yeah, so the hard copy one didn't have a code because it was either mailed in or you could call our office. So Logan's been handing codes out there.
So if every survey was returned, what would the count be? That's what I'm trying to get at.
Right, and so the question is because we don't know how many adults are in the household, for example.
Roughly, I mean, I don't know how to phrase it. How many households
I
did
thought
we
we
mail
sent
to?
out 9,000.
9,000, okay, thanks.
I thought there's 9,000.
Yeah, but that wouldn't account
households.
for like multiple
okay.
people in a household.
That's
but yeah,
okay,
yeah.
so 9,000 or more, roughly?
Sure, yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
nice, that's gets me a lot closer than I was.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, we'll see if they can break that down a little bit before November 6th so
Okay.
they can get that. Because we could be able to provide our parents, even though we only sent one per household, we can still say how many adults potentially could have. So, no, that's a good point. And then in terms of strategic visioning, I think right now we're really working on our data in terms of that and who we are and figuring that out. That's really our next step in determining where we're going for a lot of things. And so I think, today was a very productive day across the district and looking at our data to just have that. I think our staff haven't had that opportunity to really, at all levels, really dig in there and start to look at that. It was really interesting just listening all day, like a lot of teachers just walking going, I didn't know that, or I didn't get that, or why is that district where, what are they doing differently, or just even comparable, our contiguous districts, how different their data looks. And it was very interesting to have teachers talking about that.
Yeah, so question on data, and then I have another one on the survey. So the question on the data is, when you said today was the first day a lot of teachers had looked at data, can you differentiate that between, can you draw a difference between that and the data meetings that they have a lot of throughout the year?
Sure, yeah.
Because obviously they look at data throughout the year and you have data meetings. So that's not the data you're referring to, so what's the difference?
Yeah, I would say a couple things on that, Jen. I would say that today it was looking at a couple, district-wide data we started out with, and then they looked at building-wide data in various subgroups. Probably have not looked, my understanding, they have not looked at the district-wide and compared it to our comparables. They haven't looked at building in the different subgroups the way that they were grouped for them. So they looked at maybe like how did our elementary school perform on the forward exam in 3rd grade, but not in the different ways that you can look at that and continue to break it down. And the data meetings that they've had, and in fact that's where the principals are right now, they're talking about that, the data meetings that have occurred prior to this year have looked at it, but not with the lens of what does that mean for my instruction. It's been a matter of we have this many kids who need to improve it, so what does that mean? So a deeper level of using the data to really inform some changes versus statistically putting them in columns and say, okay, now we know what that is. So a different lens, but I would say the district and the comparables was definitely one of the first, and then building just some different ways of looking at it.
Okay, thanks. And then on the survey, what date did you say we can expect some data from the survey, and when is the meeting to discuss it?
So the public meeting is November 6th, that
Right.
Monday, and so that was that special meeting that we put out there. And so after the survey closes, I didn't want to confuse people with it. Logan's going to put out here's our whole timeline of things coming up, so the public knows if they want to attend. And so that's specifically for that, in which we'll look at that. Once the survey closes and they do whatever they need to do at school perceptions to analyze it and put it into charts and that. So the board meeting before that, so I would guess that Thursday before November 6th is when it would come into, you know, the packet for you to be able to look at.
Okay, so we'll have a little bit of time.
You'll have a little bit
to
of
look at some
time,
data
yeah.
So we can actually, you know, come up with any, we don't have to come up with questions on the fly as they're trying to give us
No, but I'd be careful because I think their analysis of it is gonna be
Sure.
important for us, so I would just be
Well, of
careful, like,
course.
yeah, and so, I mean, you can have it there, but I think that part of that night is to, yeah, because they will be here again then on the 13th, the following week, to be able to then, so there will be some very consistent, so the 6th is sort of like the, whoa, no decisions, hear what he has to say, how that compares to the research that he has with other districts that have done referendums and all of that, come around a week later.
well, yeah.
Yeah,
But
and
I
then
just,
there will
I
be
just want
some.
to make sure that we get it before the presentation so we can pay more attention to what he's saying rather than what's on the page or the slide.
Yep, yep.
Thank you.
Yep,
Is that the only agenda item that evening?
on the 6th, yep, it's the only thing that night.
Thank you.
Yep.
Items for future consideration? Okay, board member announcements? Yes.
I just want to thank you. I thought the newsletter was great. I read it front to cover, and I thought the pictures were visually stunning, and the information was just about right. I thought. So thank you. I thought that was.
Thanks, good, we're trying to find that balance, I think visual, I think
Yeah.
from not, people who aren't affiliated with the school like the visual and the pictures and whatever that is, so we're trying to work to make sure we get enough of those and have them at events so they're high quality pictures, as our website is much more visual too when you look at the picture, so, yeah, so we're trying to do that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other announcements? Okay. So then, take a motion to adjourn a closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.851E to discuss the contract with Bray Architects.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
roll call vote, Nancy,
Aye.
Quinn,
Aye.
Stephanie, Jonathan, I, Kevin,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Luann.
Aye.
Okay. Motion carries. Thank you. Have a great night.
Or would you like to?